For those who don't know Clara, you have a long history in tech, right? You were formerly at Salesforce, where you were CEO of their AI efforts. You recently, well, not so recently, about a year now, right, joined Meta to lead their business AI. So can we start off, Clara, by telling us, I think everyone right now is thinking about Meta and superintelligence. We've all read the stories about the talent wars. What exactly do you do? How does that relate to the superintelligence efforts, and what is business AI at Meta about?
Sure. First of all, it's so great to be back at Stanford. I graduated from here 20 years ago, and I was just thinking the last time I spoke in this room was for the Stanford CS Department 50th anniversary, and I was on a panel with Sam Altman, Jensen Huang, and Andrew Ng. So it's really exciting to see how far we've come as an industry in AI since then, 10 years ago. So in terms of what we're doing at Meta, Meta's vision is to build superintelligence for everyone. Practically inside the company, what that means is we have our labs that train models, our Meta Superintelligence Labs. For consumers, we have Meta AI, almost 1 billion monthly active users there. And on the model side, over 1 billion downloads of Llama to date. And so there's the models, there's the consumers, and then we're also building AI tools for businesses. And this includes features for advertisers to optimize their campaigns and improve their ad placement, as well as generate ad copy and ad images and video. And it also includes business AIs, which are turnkey customer chatbots that any business can deploy across WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, as well as their website.
That's right. And so, when we talked recently and you showed me a little bit about these business AIs, can you explain what they actually look like in practice? Is this me having like a chatbot for my favorite clothing store? Can you just explain how that actually works?
Yes. So, you can think about, emerging markets where, how many of you use WhatsApp or Messenger? It's almost a good majority of people in the room. So the behaviors in emerging markets are very different than what we're seeing here in the US. And so you can imagine these businesses, many of them are small. They're running their business on Messenger or on WhatsApp. And so that's where all their customers are. They have pictures of their product catalogs and menu items that they upload and send and message to their customers all the time. Their customers are messaging them, asking for products, asking questions. And so what we've been able to do is we've realized that these small businesses in particular, they can't get back to everybody. Right? It's hard to scale as they grow in their business. And so we offer them, we're testing turnkey business agents for them to delegate which topics they want the AI to answer for them. And they're able to turn that on, and it'll respond on the business's behalf. In the US, businesses are more sophisticated. It's a more complex enterprise software landscape. And so we are integrating with the systems that these businesses are using and building a digital sales concierge that lives on both Meta surfaces, so think Facebook and Instagram ads, as well as on the merchant's website. And what we want to do is deliver personalized shopping experiences on behalf of each brand and do it in a way that's really accessible so that even if you're a small business and you don't have a big IT team or you don't have any developers, you can turn this on within a few minutes.
Yeah, I feel like Instagram is already really good at pushing me ads that are very targeted to my interests, so I can only imagine with AI how far you can take that. How much of a differentiator do you think that Meta having all the data around how customers have been using WhatsApp to talk to customers or Instagram to share pictures of their brand, how much does that help you differentiate your business AI offerings? And how are you using that data today?
That's such an important question because a lot of these businesses, all of their tacit knowledge and their standard operating procedures, and even all of their customers are on WhatsApp, for example, or on Messenger, or they're interacting with them on Instagram. And so sometimes they're sophisticated, they have a CRM system, we integrate. A lot of times, especially very small businesses, they don't. And so for us to be able to take their data, the business uses their data to train up their own AI, and we can infer their knowledge base and their company policies, and that's how we're able to get them up and running in minutes.
Okay, I want to talk about AI agents for a minute because I know that was a big part of what you did at Salesforce. It's a big part of Meta's strategy and any really cutting-edge AI company's strategy, right? I feel like there's a big disconnect between the promise of agents that we're hearing about and then the reality of consumer agents today, which I've probably tested every consumer AI agent on the market, and it still struggles to do things like find me a burrito, right, or order me one successfully with the toppings I like, whatever. So how should we be making sense of where AI agents are at today, and how long do you think it will be before we get these agents that can truly do more generalized tasks at a business or consumer level?
You bring up such a good point, because I think many of us have seen that. How many of you have seen the MIT study about 95% of enterprise AI projects failing? I think that really struck a chord, because it's hard to get AI projects, especially autonomous agents, working well. There's so much context that's required. That's why everyone talks about context engineering. And so I think what we're seeing is that domain-specific, narrow agents are working the best, because you can really understand it. You can feed it the data and the context that it needs to be able to automate the planning and the reasoning steps that you want. And that's what I think is what we're seeing. Still early testing, but we're getting ready to launch next month. And just as we approach that, I think being very specific and targeted about what are the jobs to be done. Do I have sufficient context and history to be able to answer that? And then making sure that the agents are architected so that they know when they don't have that context to hand off to a human.
What are you launching next month, exactly?
Well, stay tuned.
Okay,
Yeah.
Excited for that. And back to that MIT study you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I have received so many questions from our readers or people in the industry about this study. And for those who don't know, it said something like 95% of businesses that piloted these new Gen AI enterprise softwares have found basically no improvements or meaningful impact on productivity. Do you worry? You mentioned how we have to. The agents right now are good at specific tasks. It takes time to get them to work in your workflow. All that aside, do you think people are right to be concerned that maybe we're heading into this AI bubble right now, where the expectations are not meeting reality, and it's going to take time and be more narrow than people are hoping for?
I'm sure there's some of that. I mean, I imagine back in the 90s, right, there was all this hype around the dot-com bubble and e-commerce, and I think there's value there, but sometimes it takes a while, right? It's not going to be your first project or first 5 projects that works out. And so I think almost taking a venture mindset to how AI experiments get run. How do you run them quickly and cheaply so that you can eventually kind of iterate and figure out what's going to stick for your particular business and use case.
And how is Meta measuring that productivity? I'm curious, like if you were to do a study today on Meta's business AI, how would you measure if it's actually showing meaningful impact on the company?
Well, so business AI is solving a particular need that our 200 million businesses run on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And so there are acute needs around customer experience, for example. Every day, there are billions of consumers who message businesses and they don't hear back. Or it takes several days or weeks to hear back because the business, especially small businesses, are understaffed. And so being able to address that customer experience is really important, resolving customer support issues more quickly, and then driving sales conversions, right? Being able to provide that personalized shopping experience for each consumer so that they don't feel so overwhelmed having to browse and navigate a website, which is really an experience that hasn't changed in over a decade.
I'm curious, do you use AI internally in your own day-to-day business or personally? I'm just curious how you're using it.
All the time. I mean, first, it's a great way to keep up with the ever-evolving space. But second, it's just been an incredible productivity unlock, both in my role and I'd say everybody on the team. How they do their job is, we're learning and iterating and changing and offloading more to AI with humans in the loop. And then how we're building the product is also fundamentally different, right? How we're approaching building business software instead of manually hard-coding database schemas and manually hard-coding workflows, which is how we've been developing software for decades. Being able now to use AI to generate drafts of software, to infer schema, to infer knowledge bases, to infer workflows for human approval, and just how much faster we can evolve and adapt.
So as I recently learned, you went to Stanford, bachelor's and master's here, computer science. Are you using it for coding? Are you using, Copilot or vibe coding tools?
Yeah, I've used all the different tools out there, but the great thing about vibe coding is that you don't need a computer science degree from Stanford to use them. Right? I'm seeing designers on my team, customer support managers on our team, building apps and prototypes, and it's really a renaissance moment.
Is there a particular one that you like to use?
Well, all the Meta AI tools are terrific.
Great. All right. Well, we talked a lot about the potentials of AI, how it can impact business. We would be amiss if we didn't also talk about the harms and risks here. Meta in particular has been in the news quite a bit lately about concerns regarding AI safety, particularly with younger users. There was a report a few weeks ago about permissive training guidelines for sensual teen chatbot content. And just yesterday, there was a whistleblower complaint alleging the company covered up research on child safety risks in VR. Of course, this issue is not just limited to Meta. There have been incidents of chatbots causing harm in younger users, allegedly with other tools as well. What do you think went wrong with the Meta incidents in particular? And how do you convince businesses to trust Meta AI when some might see these headlines and take pause?
I can't comment on those allegations. I actually haven't heard of some of the ones that you mentioned. I will say I know that Meta takes teen safety and child safety very seriously. I work with those leaders and those teams. And I know, so Family Center is something that Meta has had for several years. It allows parents to supervise what their kids are doing. And then last year, Meta launched teen accounts that are more restrictive, and parents can define guardrails. So I know it's something that the company takes very seriously. It's not my specific area. I would say to the business question, trust and safety is a core part of my product and engineering teams. We talk about it in every meeting. They have an equal seat at the table as everything else. And it's something that, just like with the internet 20 years ago, there's going to be new risks whenever there's a disruptive technology, and we have to, as leaders, continuously look at those risks and bake them into our product to account for them and safeguard against them.
What are the specific risks that businesses who use your tools have? What are kind of the fears that they want to make sure are relieved before they go all in on these AI products?
Yeah, so there's many different types of risks, but in terms of making sure that we stay faithful to the business's policies and products, making sure that putting guardrails around the model outputs so that there's not hallucinations, or that we reduce the risk of hallucinations through really careful context engineering, retrievals, and having continuous evals to make sure that the conversations are productive, that they stay on brand, that they're driving the outcome that both the consumer and the businesses want. And then finally, from a data privacy perspective, making sure that we properly segment across consumers and businesses.
So you came from a major enterprise software company. Now you're at a major, one of the biggest consumer software companies, but heading up enterprise sort of within that. I'm just curious, what have the differences been like? And how has it sort of been in your first year at Meta? New challenges, new opportunities.
A lot of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started my career off way back when at Google, but since then I've spent the bulk of my career in B2B software. And so I think it's really neat because I've come to a place where that's a fairly new concept. And so I'm often finding myself sharing and educating and talking about what we would have taken for granted at a B2B company. But it's at a moment when AI is changing everything. So it's actually a perfect time for us to have those first principles conversations of, okay, some of these B2B practices withstand the test of time, and we should keep doing it. Some of these actually are changing because of AI, and let's approach and craft and experiment from first principles.
Is it fun to be working for a company where you can kind of, your friends are probably using, right, Meta's AI tools, or can play around with it, test it, give you feedback?
It has been. I have a few friends who've started e-commerce businesses, and some of them are in our pilots, and it is really neat to see just the consumer relevance of the brands. Many of these brands that they started on Instagram or WhatsApp, and that's their whole business.
I want to talk a little bit more about superintelligence. I feel like it's this term that's sort of taken on more prominence now. It's like the new AGI. Everyone's reaching for super intelligence, including very famously Mark Zuckerberg, who you work for. What does super intelligence mean to you?
Superintelligence, as defined by Mark, is an AGI, is AI that surpasses human ability across domains. And it's a really powerful concept, and it's been inspiring listening to the previous sessions about how AI is already transforming everything from drug discovery to physics, chemistry, agriculture, education. I really think we're on the cusp of just this incredible moment that Meta's vision is to empower everyone with, not just a few companies, but every individual and even the smallest of businesses.
I mean, for business AI in particular, like what does a super intelligent future look like? Is there going to be a world where eventually you just sort of tell the AI, look, run my entire operations for me, or run my entire marketing or advertising? Like, how autonomous are you trying to get with this?
At some point.
And how far away do you think we are from that?
I mean, these timelines it's impossible to predict. But I think we're already seeing that a lot of small businesses have entrusted Meta with, we have something called Advantage Plus, which is AI-powered automation for ad placement. And so previously, a lot of small businesses, especially if they couldn't afford to work with an agency, they struggled to figure out how to optimize the knobs and dials. And now they have an AI assistant to help them do a lot of this, and we're seeing the performance gains. And so I think that's where we started. Now business AI is expanding beyond ads and beyond discovery of brands and products to really some of the operations of answering sales questions, support questions. And it's really, I talk to these customers, these businesses every day, and it's really making a difference in how they operate.
We mentioned super intelligence. That's also been very wrapped up in this conversation about talent and how Meta is, poaching hard to get the top talent on its team. What does that look like on the business AI side? How are you, enticing the best and brightest minds to join you? And do you get to offer $100 million or more pay packages or comp packages to employees?
Look, I mean, there's the compensation piece of attracting talent. The reason I joined, and the reason we have such talented people on the team joining every day, I really think it's both the talent density and being able to work with others who I feel stretched and challenged every single day at work. And that's really, it's just very invigorating. And then the other is access to GPUs. And that was just incredible foresight on Mark and the team's part, and being able to test these ideas, to build these models, to build applications.
How far in advance are you having to decide and allocate, like how many GPUs you're using toward the business AI features versus other features?
There's no hard and fast rule. I think we're kind of learning as we go.
Yeah, I imagine I know internally there can be a lot of sometimes just debate about where to even put those resources, right? Because they are so costly and require so much planning. And let's talk about the business AI team. I mean, are you expanding this team? How much do you think that it's going to grow? Can you tell us a little bit about what the next year or two might look like for business AI?
Yes. So I started this new product group coming on a year ago. And it was a true 0-to-1 effort within a large company. And we're at over 500 team members now across the board. And we have job openings in every area from AI engineering to product management to design to marketing to support to business engineering. So really across the board.
I'm curious if you've seen there are like viral memes about people trying to use chatbots to figure out a novel business idea and make a ton of money with minimal effort. And that's actually part of sort of the original promise, I think, of AGI, right? Is that eventually every intellectual task can be done by AI, and it will create this sort of abundance of economic riches. I'm just curious about what you make of that. Do you think that is part of the promise or the goal here? And are you seeing any creative new ideas coming to businesses from AI? And if so, what are those?
Yeah, I mean, there's the ideation part of it of, what products should I make? And a lot of that can often come from customer feedback. So I met recently with a one-woman entrepreneur, one-woman shop who makes jewelry in Brooklyn. And she realized that with business AI, she's getting all these queries about customers asking for products. And the business AI was just saying, sorry, we don't offer that type of necklace or that type of earrings. And she realized that that is actually a great source of product ideas for her, is just listening to her customers. In the past, she didn't have the time to sift through all those transcripts. She didn't even have those conversations because she's just one woman. She's making the jewelry herself. And now she's able to unlock this ideation engine. And then just looking at how she's able to handle customer support requests much better, offload kind of the mundane, easy orders, the standard orders to the AI so that she can focus on more custom jewelry. And it's been neat because I think in the past she would have had to take out a business loan, maybe max out her credit cards, maybe have to hire more people. Now she's able to scale her business because of AI.
And let's talk about cost a little bit. I mean, there's obviously a lot of neat things people are doing with AI. That comes at great cost to the companies producing these models, even if they're getting revenue from customers. Obviously, Meta has a very different business than an OpenAI or an Anthropic, where you have this already established, right, social media platform and ads business. But how are you thinking about the cost per feature for these businesses rolling out your tools? And is that penciling out right now for Meta? Or is that something where you're eating the cost now and hoping it sort of becomes profitable for you guys in the future?
Well, right now we're still in a testing phase with business AI. So everything is, the products are free for our testers. But even as we approach our go-to-market launch, because the vision is to provide super intelligence for everyone, that includes businesses, that includes very small businesses, the approach is going to be, it's going to be free for many businesses, and then in certain cases we'll monetize, and where we monetize, we will still, it'll be a fraction of the cost.
And is that when you say super intelligence for everyone, or Zuckerberg says that, can you expand a little on that? Because when I think about these AI products, many of them, like ChatGPT or Claude, they're pretty mainstream. There's free versions of the products. I mean, ChatGPT, one of the fastest growing apps of all time. So what do you think is the differentiator there with Meta saying super intelligence is for everyone? Is that because long-term these companies, you think other companies will start charging more for it and Meta can remain free? Or how are you kind of interpreting that?
Well, I can't comment on other companies' strategies. What I will say is, super intelligence, as Mark has described it, it's really not just what we experience today with text chatbots. It's really, as we've been hearing about all day at this conference, it's about a super intelligence that is with us all day and also gets to observe the outside world, right? There's so much that happens in the world that is not captured in text or in language. And so, Mark has talked about the importance of AI glasses as a form factor that can stay with us, be out of the way, and see what we see, hear what we hear, interact with the world, help whisper in our ear the way that a chief of staff might for someone who's really important, and just change that whole experience and integrate it more seamlessly into our day-to-day lives.
Do you think we could see shopping features in the next version of the Meta Ray-Bans or Meta wearables?
Stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely, I could see the business case for that and the compelling vision for that. On the other hand, that does creep out a lot of people, right, to this idea that we will have these super intelligent AI devices, not just on our phones, but sort of on our bodies, constantly watching and hearing us. What do you say to people who are scared about this future?
I think it's something that we have to navigate together. I mean, when mobile phones were introduced, when internet was introduced, SMS, email, there were just, it was uncomfortable. And it really violated norms that existed in society before. And so I think that, that's the power of feedback and looking at data is, what makes sense for whom, and how do we take a privacy-first approach?
All right, I want to talk a little bit about predictions, because everyone wants to know what's coming, and you're at one of the biggest companies in AI and tech right now. So what are your predictions for, let's say, next year? I was calling it the year of agents, I think, last year. I feel like I was a little ahead of myself based on my burrito example. But what do you think we can see? What areas of AI are we going to see more improvements in the next year? And any general predictions in this field?
I guess maybe I'll do one for consumers and one for businesses. Sure. For consumers, I think we're already starting to see, and we see this in Meta AI, more and more consumers looking to their AI assistant to help them find products, especially if they're brand agnostic. They're looking for a camping stove that fits X number of requirements and has good reviews. So I think there's going to continue to be that AI assistant kind of eating search. And then, but we're also seeing, a lot of consumers continue to want to interact with brands and follow influencers, have those experiences with different businesses. And so I think there's different need states from a shopping perspective that, we were able to address collectively. And then on the business side, going back to that MIT study that we were talking about earlier, I think we're just going to see AI dramatically simplify. Thus far, a lot of the enterprise pilots have come from the complexity of having to buy a vector database and then figure out retrieval and have a real-time data platform and do all the data cleansing and harmonization and figure out your model gateway and do evals. And that's A, out of reach for the vast majority of businesses around the world, and B, it creates a lot of points of failure. And so being able to bring more of that together more seamlessly in a more turnkey way, that's certainly something that's been very motivating to my team and to me. And I think just across the board, beyond Meta, that's going to continue to be the case.
Speaking of predictions, do you have a P-doom? Do you have any % chance you think this could all go wrong and the human race is jeopardized by AI?
I think it's up to us, and it goes back to the importance of trust and safety, and knowing there's risks that we can talk about and anticipate in advance, and there's a lot of work being done to do that, and then there's risks that we can't anticipate, and being very vigilant that as those emerge, that we take action.
So you give me a range.
I mean, it's so hard to say. I would say I'm more optimistic than pessimistic because of the very brilliant people that I work with every day who are thinking about this, working on it actively.
Great. All right. Well, we're almost at time. Thank you so much, Clara, for talking to me today.
Thanks.
Yeah.